In this story, our protagonist dies of a heart attack on the same day he becomes the CEO of the company despite working so hard for it. But then he reincarnates as a small child in a poor family back in the past when his grandfather was still alive. Now, how will he become rich again while living in this family at such a young age? That's what we'll see today. The story begins with a large building. Inside, the news is playing on ATV in one of the rooms, and someone is listening while showering. The broadcast announces the shareholder meeting to determine the chairman of Samjong Group, one of the top 3 conglomerates in the country. The person continues watching while showering. The news then reveals that the next chairman of Samjong Group has been decided. It is Gook Ash steps out of the shower. He hears the announcement and bursts into laughter, overwhelmed with joy. With a confident smirk, he exclaims, "Yes, praise me more." His arrogance is evident as he declares, "I will become the king of Samjong Group. Everyone will respect me." Seongguk has worked tirelessly to reach this point. Flashbacks of his childhood show how hard he studied while dealing with his troublesome siblings. But it wasn't just about education. He took care of his uncle, managed an arranged marriage, and did everything flawlessly. However, the hardest part was maintaining a perfect public image in this new generation, which was an immense challenge. But now he doesn't care about that anymore. He has worked hard and finally secured his place at the top. As he sips wine, he thinks to himself, "I am now the king of this group. Soon I will officially own the company." Taking out his phone, he plans to clean up everything, including the underlings who failed him and only created problems. But suddenly his phone slips from his hand. His heart begins to pound violently and the wine glass shatters on the floor. Tyorskwa can't breathe. Then his eyes fall on a picture of his grandfather who had died from a heart attack. In that moment, he realizes the same fate has come for him. After everything he worked for, all he gets in return is a heart attack. He refuses to accept it. He wanted to enjoy his victory, but before he can do anything, he dies. Just then, he hears a girl's voice. A soft touch grazes his cheek. When he opens his eyes, he is shocked. He sees himself as a child. A man and a woman are holding him. They are his parents. He touches his face in disbelief and screams, "What happened to me?" Both his parents are delighted looking at their adorable baby. His mother blushes and asks her husband, "Isn't our child so cute and handsome?" His father proudly responds, "He looks like a celebrity. Maybe he'll become one when he grows up." His mother laughs. "We're so lucky to have such a handsome son." Seongguk is furious. "Lucky, this is a nightmare. Why was I born like this?" Seeing his angry face, his father assumes that the baby is upset about something, but Seongguk is crying inside. "I had the perfect body. I trained every day in the gym, sweating for that amazing physique. I had a handsome face, an incredible body, and now I'm just a tiny child." Worse, he didn't even get to enjoy his success. He became king for just one night before dying. And now he has been reborn into a poor family. Looking around at their small house and his shabby clothes, he finally understands he was born into a poor household. They have nothing but love. Suddenly, he craves his favorite wine, a single bottle. It used to cost him 4 million won. But now, instead of wine, someone hands him a bottle of milk. He is horrified. Milk instead of wine at first. He doesn't want to drink it. But as the bottle comes closer, his mouth starts watering. After all, he is now a baby, and babies love milk. Despite his resistance, he gulps it down in one go. Afterward, his father kisses his cheek. He hates it. Disgusting. I'd rather have died than be born like this. He cries again, in frustration. But his parents misunderstand and think, "He's just sleepy or hungry." They hold him lovingly, which makes him remember his previous life. In his past, he had never received this kind of love. His family was always busy, never caring about whether he ate or not. His father only visited occasionally, and his siblings treated him terribly. Thinking about it, he cries even harder. His parents assume he's just tired and put him to sleep. As he drifts off, his father says, "Since he's sleeping, let's relax too." He turns on the TV. A news report comes on about Samjong Group. Then he hears a familiar name, his grandfather's. Seongguk's eyes snap open. He stares at the TV in shock. His grandfather is alive. That means he wasn't reborn into the future. He has been reborn into the past. The protagonist sits in front of the TV and his parents are shocked. How is he understanding everything on the screen, so easily watching him? It seems like he comprehends everything perfectly. His parents are amazed as they see the news report company chairman Justin has been caught in the Apple Box bribery. Scandal allegations of bribery have been raised against him. Following these events, an investigation was conducted by the prosecutor's office, and the chairman personally appeared to assist in the case. The protagonist is stunned. How could his grandfather still be alive? Unable to believe it, he moves closer to the TV. As he sees his grandfather's face, memories come rushing back. When he was 10 years old, his grandfather was caught bribing politicians with Apple Boxes and had to stand trial. Those who feared the rise of his company criticized it as a dirty move, claiming it was blatant corruption. The protagonist finds it all annoying. If money is so powerful, then my connections should be just as powerful. He recalls how people, including his friends, believe that saving money will make them rich. But his parents aren't thinking about that right now. They're simply overjoyed to see their son crawling for the first time. Regardless, the protagonist continues explaining. Anyway, on the day my grandfather appeared before the prosecution, he made 10-year-old me push his wheelchair. It was all a performance to stir public sympathy. But for me, it was no different from a debut. That was the day I showed the entire world that John was the rightful successor. However, there was a problem. His foolish, greedy younger brother G had gone abroad to study, but ended up becoming a drug addict. Not only that, he spent his whole life trying to take place. The protagonist presses his hand against the TV screen, furious. That's not the real problem. The real problem is that I've turned into a child. Even being born in the past isn't the issue. The real issue is my fate, my position. Everything is about to be stolen from me. Overwhelmed, starts crying uncontrollably. Night falls, and his mother comes into the room with food. He hasn't eaten all day. His stomach growls, but he remains glued to the TV. Seeing this, his mother grows increasingly worried. Just then his father returns home smiling. As he announces that he's brought meat for dinner, his boss gave it to him. His father is a chef at a nearby restaurant. As his father prepares to cook, his mother stops him. Something's wrong with our son. He's been watching TV all day and refuses to eat. He even has dark circles under his eyes. And if we change the channel, he cries confidently. His father replies, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." He walks over to the protagonist and playfully tries to convince him to turn off the TV, but before he can reach the remote, the protagonist grabs his father's finger and glares at him with intense fury. His father immediately backs off. "I don't have time for this nonsense," the protagonist thinks. The more information I gather, the better he needs to understand his current situation, his grandfather, his company's condition, and most importantly, how to return to his original body. His determination is reflected in his eyes. But then his mother suddenly turns off the TV. Seeing this, he starts crying again. His mother says to the protagonist, "You haven't eaten anything all day, you should eat first." But the protagonist continues, sobbing, screaming in his head, "What do you know? Do you have any idea how hard I worked to become the successor of the company? I built everything only to lose it all in a single night. I don't care about anything else. I just want to go back to my real body." Tears stream down his face as he reaches out toward the dark TV screen. His mother gently tells him, "Rest for today. You can watch TV again tomorrow." He thinks maybe it's because I'm a child now, I've become too emotional, and for that reason he suddenly feels hungry and drinks some milk. As soon as he finishes eating, he falls asleep. His mother is deeply worried. He's already 1 year old, but he's never once called them mom or dad. The only thing he ever does is watch the news. His father begins to fear that they've raised him the wrong way, making their child unable to recognize them as his parents. So his father suddenly hugs both his wife and child, saying, "From now on, we need to give him even more love. Maybe then when he grows up, he'll finally call us mom and dad." A few days later, the protagonist's condition worsens. He hasn't been sleeping properly. Every time his parents put him to bed, only pretended to sleep, secretly staying up to watch TV, and when they turned it off, he bit his father's hand in frustration. But despite everything, he hasn't been able to gather any useful information. He begins to feel completely hopeless. The world keeps moving, day turns to night, time never stops, yet here I am still trapped in this tiny body. He's frustrated. Even in his previous life, he worked tirelessly, but never truly enjoyed himself, and now he's stuck in this situation. His mother happily asks him, "Why aren't you watching TV today?" In his mind, he thinks, "I've given up. There's no point anymore, I won't gain anything from this." Suddenly, his mother picks him up smiling. "Since you're not watching TV, let's talk today." She laughs and adds, "We need to go buy groceries, want to come with me to the market?" She carries him outside and shows him the flowers through the window. Look, how beautiful they are. As they step out into the fresh air, the weather is perfect. That's when a girl suddenly appears in front of them. His mother tells him that she's their landlord. The protagonist curiously looks at the girl and wonders, is she going to work? The girl calmly responds to his mother, "You're leaving late today." Before walking away, he watches her leave thinking, is this young girl really the owner of this building? Soon they reach a construction site where a building is being renovated. The protagonist and his mom were passing through the area, and the girl was with them. His mom smiled and said she would make a really delicious soup today. The protagonist thought to himself that he would only be able to drink milk. Just then his eyes landed on a heavy metal bar on top of a building. It looked unstable, as if it was about to fall. And then it did. The protagonist couldn't do anything, but his mom saw it. Without hesitation, she protected her child, shielding him from harm. When the smoke cleared, his mother was in a terrible state. She was covered in blood. The girls were also there. The girl quickly called an ambulance to take his mother to the hospital. The protagonist, however, was completely unharmed. His mother had saved him. Seeing this, he was in shock, realizing that his mom might die. She had risked her life to protect him. At the hospital, doctors rushed her into the emergency room. One of the staff explained the situation to the doctor, who then immediately prepared for surgery. But suddenly the doctor froze, looking shocked as if he recognized something, though it was unclear why. The scene shifted. His mother finally regained consciousness. Her husband was right there beside her, looking extremely anxious. As soon as she woke up, he started asking if she was okay, but instead of answering, her first question was, "How is our son?" Her husband reassured her, telling her that their son was safe and right. Beside them, the protagonist was crying uncontrollably. Seeing this, his mother pulled him into her arms and gently said, "You don't have to be scared, I'm fine." Hearing this, the protagonist suddenly burst into tears and hugged his mother tightly. His mom and dad assumed that he was crying because he had been really scared. He, on the other hand, was thinking about how close his mother had come to dying because of him. Then, as his mother glanced around, she noticed the room they were in. It was an expensive private hospital room. She turned to her husband and asked, "How did we afford this?" Her husband hesitated, looking nervous. Then he finally admitted, "You should focus on resting because you're pregnant." Hearing this, she was stunned, her face turning red with embarrassment. Her husband gently kissed her forehead and whispered, "Right now, just think about resting." As they shared a tender moment, a nurse entered the room and informed them that visiting hours were over. The protagonist's father had to leave, so He picked up his son to take him home. However, the protagonist noticed something. His father's shoes were extremely worn out. As they walked, he realized that his father didn't even have enough money for bus fare. And yet, despite their financial struggles, they were about to welcome another child into the family. For a moment, resentment crept into his mind. But then he thought about it again. His father worked tirelessly to support them, and his mother was willing to sacrifice her life to protect him. Realizing this, he suddenly felt lucky to have a family like them. Without thinking, he called, "Out, Dad!" His father stopped in his tracks, stunned. It was the first time his son had ever called him that. Overcome with emotion, he grinned and shouted in joy, "My son called me Dad for the first time." At that moment, the protagonist truly accepted them as his real family. A week later, they prepared a meal to celebrate his mother returning home. By then, the protagonist had grown slightly taller. He wore a kimono and struck a stylish pose while his father snapped a picture. His mother, unable to contain her excitement, squealed, "He's so cute." His father proudly declared, "Our son looks like a handsome celebrity." But the protagonist wasn't thinking about that. Instead, he wondered if they should even be celebrating. After all, they were so poor that they couldn't even afford hospital bills. They had struggled just to travel by bus. Just then, he realized something. It was his birthday. That was the reason for the small party. Looking at his parents, he understood something deeper. Love like theirs couldn't be bought with money. That was why. They didn't worry about wealth. Instead, they focused on showering him with love. A warm smile spread across his face. Later, the protagonist explained that while his mother was in the hospital, he had made a decision. His parents had no idea how to manage. Money they didn't know where to invest, how to save, or how to avoid wasting what little they had, and in the future a massive economic crisis was coming. Since he knew what would happen, he was determined to prepare. Just then, a loud knock echoed through the house. The sound was so intense that the protagonist instinctively covered his ears. When he opened the door, he saw the landlord standing there. She smiled and said, "I heard you were discharged, so I came to visit." Then, without hesitation, she asked, "Has your mother ever considered making you a child actor?" The scene changes and we see the protagonist's mother standing outside a building looking at a poster. He mutters, "This is the place for the audition." But as he stares at it, anxiety fills his face. He thinks, "We shouldn't have come here." Meanwhile, the protagonist is filled with determination. "This is a great opportunity for me, a chance to become someone in life." His mother hesitates, but eventually steps into the building. We then see a flashback of when a woman had first told them about this audition. She had explained the company she works for has taken on a TV commercial for a famous conglomerate. They're holding auditions for an important child actor role. When she looked at the protagonist, she couldn't help but think, "He's so handsome and cute." She truly believed he had talent, which is why she had encouraged him to audition. Back in the present, the protagonist's mother has arrived at the audition venue. The protagonist gives a chilling smile, thinking those who are destined for success will succeed. This audition is also a perfect chance for him to make money. Since childhood, he has always been surrounded by cameras, makeup lighting. He was used to it all. People often compared his looks to top actors, and he believed he was even more handsome than them. With that confidence, he was sure he could pass this audition effortlessly. His mother, however, is puzzled. Why is my child smiling like that? Just then, the elevator door opens and a woman yells loudly, "What do you think you're doing? Get inside already." The protagonist and his mother are taken aback. Who is shouting so loudly, an old woman then turns to the protagonist's mother and tells them to get in. This old woman is actually the caretaker of an arrogant, wealthy lady. On the other side, the protagonist was feeling irritated. The protagonist's mother, looking at the child, was said, "Such a cute kid." But the old woman replied with a proud expression, "Of course, our young master." Just then, the child's mother, who is none other than the arrogant woman, snaps, "Don't talk to my child." She glares at the protagonist's mother and accuses her of being here just to spy on the competition. Then with a smug smirk, she declares, "No matter what you do, my son will win." Her words bruise the protagonist's ego. He glares at her mother, who seems completely odd and awkward. He is analyzing her expensive jewelry and luxury brands. No wonder, she's so arrogant, she's ridiculously rich. Clenching his fists, he thinks, "I'll completely destroy you in this audition." The audition begins inside. The director calls for child number 8. The child acts out a scene and a woman instructs him to face the camera. The protagonist's mother watches, nervously thinking, "This looks really difficult." But the protagonist remains unfazed. "This is just a simple camera test. They're checking how we look on screen and whether we can act even a little." Meanwhile, the bright stage lights shine directly into child number 8's eyes, irritating him. His frustration is evident. Then it's time for child number 10, and surprisingly, it turns out to be the arrogant woman's son. The announcer treats the rich woman with great respect, perhaps because of her wealth. He asks the child to smile for the camera. But the child looks terrified. Sweat drips down his face. His mother, growing impatient, shouts from afar, "Smile!" But no matter how much she yells, the child refuses to smile. Instead, tears well up in his eyes. The announcers sigh. The child is crying too much. He's unable to act. They'll have to leave now. But the rich woman refuses to accept this. Wait a little longer. The announcer insists other kids are waiting. But she scoffs arrogantly. So what, letting my son take a little extra time won't ruin your show? At that moment, a deep voice interrupts next child number 12, Jong Sunguk. It's the director. His presence is commanding, as he tells the woman and her child to leave and not to cause a scene. The rich woman is furious, but she has no choice but to leave. Now it's finally the protagonist's turn. His mother watches anxiously as he stands before the camera. Just then, the arrogant woman, still fuming, shoves the protagonist mother aside so she can get a closer look at him. The protagonist stares at her, thinking, "I'll show you what real acting looks like." Then, without hesitation, he flashes an incredibly cute smile. The entire room is stunned. Even the director blushes slightly. He instructs, "Look at the camera." The protagonist strikes a perfect side pose, following every instruction flawlessly. When told to act cutely, he does so with ease, effortlessly charming everyone. Even the director is impressed. This kid understands everything so well. Meanwhile, the arrogant woman watches, seething with jealousy. Seeing his adorable pose and natural acting skills, she is absolutely furious, and now her rage is about to explode. The director excitedly yells at the protagonist's mother, praising her son as an incredible actor. Hearing this, the protagonist's mother is completely shocked. Meanwhile, the protagonist gives a cold smile and calmly says that this is nothing special to him. Filled with excitement, the director eagerly approaches the protagonist's mother, extending his hand for a handshake. "I am Director Quack." He introduces himself, grabbing her hand and shaking it vigorously. Then he immediately tells her they need to sign the contract. Still stunned, the protagonist mother asks again, "Does my son really have that much talent?" Since this was all completely unexpected for her, she asks with slight disbelief. The director laughs and confidently replies, "Your son is incredibly talented. Any director could recognize that at a glance. Not only that, whatever pose I ask him to do, he does it exactly as I envision. If I tell him to look cute, he becomes cute. If I tell him to strike a certain pose, he does it perfectly. It's like he understands everything instantly." Hearing this, the protagonist silently thinks to himself, "Of course I can understand everything. I'm just a kid, but not my brain." The director is thrilled at the thought of working with the protagonist, but just then, a loud voice interrupts. A rich woman, filled with rage, throws down a light and shouts, "The audition isn't over yet, and how dare you decide the winner?" Her voice booms through the room as she continues angrily, "I will never accept anyone other than my son as the winner of this audition." With no choice left, the director announces a final audition between the protagonist and the rich woman's son. The final audition begins. Everyone gathers in one place. The protagonist's mother looks slightly nervous, intimidated by the way the rich woman speaks, but as she watches her son, she thinks to herself, "Out of all the children here, my son is the cutest and the smartest. That's why the director praised him so much." This thought fills her with happiness, but soon she starts feeling a bit anxious. Sitting nearby, the caretaker woman notices and quietly asks, "What's wrong?" The protagonist's mom casually responds that she needs to go to the bathroom. Handing her son over to the elderly woman, the protagonist's mother heads toward the restroom. The elderly woman looks at the protagonist and smiles. "What an adorable boy," she says, admiring him. Hearing this, the rich, arrogant woman's face twists with anger. She yells, "Complenting another child in front of my son. That's the same as comparing them." Enraged, she starts shouting even louder at the elderly woman, "If you ever do that again, you'll be fired." She begins arguing with the elderly woman and mockingly says, "If you like that kid so much, why don't you adopt him?" The elderly woman quickly tries to explain, "That's not what I meant at all." Meanwhile, the protagonist listens to the rich woman's words and thinks to himself, if I could slap this woman, I'd be so happy. At that moment, an assistant director arrives and approaches the rich woman. He looks around cautiously before she assures him, don't worry. The protagonist's mother isn't here. You can speak freely. Hearing this, the protagonist starts feeling uneasy. The rich woman scowls and mutters, I've done so much to elevate my son's career. I've made sure his name will be known everywhere. Then, something shocking is revealed. Her son was already chosen as the winner before the audition even started. The protagonist is stunned. The assistant director nods and says, yes, the winner was decided in advance. The protagonist watches all of this unfold and thinks, just another case of corruption. This whole audition is nothing more than a formality to give their child a grand debut. Using other children as props and discarding them just like a staged scam. The assistant director nervously warns, if the director finds out about this, it'll cause serious problems. But the rich woman remains unfazed. What does the director know about my family? Everything has already been decided. He has no say in this. The assistant director sighs and explains, the director has won many awards. The higher-ups can't take him. Down that easily, we need to hide the fact that this was all arranged simply because you have money. Ignoring him, the rich woman smirks. My son must win the final audition, we need to make sure of it. The assistant director standing nearby says, your son performed well better than the protagonist. The protagonist is completely useless, he just needs a little more practice, that's all. Hearing this, the protagonist glares at the assistant director with an unreadable expression. The assistant director then starts coaching the rich woman's son, making him repeat his lines over and over. Meanwhile, the protagonist gives a devilish smile. Finally, the final audition begins. The protagonist and etheric woman's son stand on the stage. The protagonist's mother looks extremely nervous, but the protagonist confidently gives her a thumbs up. There's nothing to be afraid of, I'll handle this easily, he reassures himself. The director calls for action. The assistant director instructs the rich woman's son to face the camera and follow the script. The protagonist immediately thinks, I need to position myself correctly so I'm captured well on camera, so he steps forward toward the lens. Meanwhile, the rich woman's son instinctively runs toward his mother. The director watches and chuckles. Leave the child alone for now. Let's test him later. First, let's test the protagonist. He signals the assistant director to give the protagonist a line. The assistant director hesitates, thinking, the protagonist didn't practice at all. He won't be able to deliver the line properly. But when the assistant director prompts him to say, Daddy, the protagonist says it flawlessly. The assistant director is shocked. How did he get it perfect on the first try? The director, now grinning, says, his eyes don't lie, I found the right actor. And then the rich woman brings her son forward. The director, looking a little concerned, instructs the child to say, Daddy. But instead of speaking, the boy bursts into tears. His mother is completely dumbfounded. Even though the assistant director had rehearsed with him beforehand, the child can't say a single word. Panicked, the rich woman accidentally blurts out, but I trained him for this. The director overhears everything. Sensing trouble, the assistant director quickly interrupts, abruptly ending the audition. He thanks everyone for their hard work trying to cover up the situation. Later, the protagonist's mother is informed of the final decision. The winner is not your son, they tell her. It's the rich woman's son. Hearing this, she is completely stunned, unable to process what just happened. The protagonist's mother is furious that her son performed so well, yet still lost cherishes to confront the assistant director, but he responds arrogantly, saying, just because he acted cute doesn't mean he deserves to be a child actor. Hearing this, the protagonist's mother is stunned. At that moment, a wealthy woman steps in, looking down on the protagonist's mother and sneers, you should remember your place, poor people should always know where they belong. The protagonist's mother immediately places her hand over her son's ear, trying to shield him from hearing such cruel words. But the rich woman continues, speaking with complete disdain as if poor people have no value at all. Then, after asserting her superiority, she walks away. The protagonist's mother is shocked. How could someone speak so disrespectfully to a child? Tears well up in her eyes. But just then, the protagonist tugs at her sleeve, thinking to himself, stay calm. Everything is going exactly as planned. A smart, knowing smile appears on his face. At that moment, the director rushes out looking for the protagonist's mother. The scene shifts to a conversation that had taken place earlier between the assistant director and the wealthy woman. The protagonist had already realized that he couldn't win in a direct battle. People with money could buy whatever they wanted, including results. In his past life, he had learned this lesson well. Fighting people like them head-on was pointless. There's no point in fighting. A losing battle. A true businessman aims higher and builds the right connections. The director, looking troubled, finally speaks. The higher-ups already decided the winner before the audition even started. He gently places his hand on the protagonist's head. The protagonist watches closely, wondering what the director is going to say next. Then, to his surprise, the director tells him to come to the next week's shoot. At that moment, the protagonist's plan is revealed. 1. Captivate the director equals build connections. 2. Get continuous child actor roles. 3. Become a child star. 4. Get rich. He doesn't just want to be a model. He wants to be an actor. By earning the director's trust and proving his talent, he can secure a real future. There's no long-term value in just being a model. If he can work with the director, he can go far and make a lot of money. As he thinks about this, a sly grin appears on his face because with that money he can finally help his family. The protagonist's mother, still unsure, asks why he was invited to the shoot. The director explains that they always keep backup child actors in case the lead child actor gets sick or can't perform. He also admits that he has a bad feeling about the child they originally chose. He does nothing but cry all the time and might not be useful at all. Hearing this, the protagonist smirks. That makes sense. The director himself isn't fully convinced about the official winner, which is why he still wants to keep the protagonist as a backup. Suddenly, the director grabs the protagonist's mother's hand, bows his head slightly, and sincerely asks them to come to the shoot. The mother hesitates, wondering if this is really the right decision for her son. But on the other hand, the protagonist is practically screaming, "Say yes," in his mind. His eyes sparkle with dollar signs, showing just how hungry he is for wealth. The director laughs, seeing how well the protagonist understands everything. If all actors were like this kid, filming would be so much easier. He hands the mother his business card and offers a contract, telling her to contact him if there are any problems. Not only that, but he also gives her his personal number for future projects. This was exactly what the protagonist wanted, earning the director's trust so he could become an actor, not just a model. The scene changes to the filming location. The protagonist's mother arrives at the set, looking around in amazement. It's her first time experiencing something like this. Just then, the assistant director rushes toward her. The protagonist glares at him with pure anger, making the assistant director uneasy. Why is he looking at me like that? Meanwhile, the protagonist is deep in thought. This assistant director is completely corrupt. As they are led to the waiting room, the protagonist suddenly notices something that makes his eyes widen in shock. There among the props is a washing machine and other products from his family's company. The same products that became a massive hit and sent the company's stock skyrocketing. Maybe they invited me here just to use me as a model for this product. He wonders. At that moment, the wealthy woman from before glares at the protagonist's mom and snaps, "What is he doing here? They failed the audition." But this time, the protagonist's mother doesn't stay silent. She loudly declares, "The director invited us as a backup model." The protagonist smirks at his mother's boldness. "Nice, Mom, you're awesome, kick her skinny ass." However, the wealthy woman looks confused. "Backup model," she repeats. The assistant director quickly explains why the director called for a backup. Hearing this, the rich woman scoffs. "There's no need for a backup. My son is more than capable of handling this role." Yet her son looks extremely nervous, his face filled with anxiety. Seeing this, the protagonist immediately realizes that kid doesn't look like he can act properly at all. Still, the wealthy woman arrogantly tells them to get lost, claiming there's no need for extras. Just then, Shawn Mai, the lead actress, enters the scene. She walks toward them and says, "We'll be filming the scene with this child today." The moment Sean appears, everyone is stunned by her beauty. The assistant director quickly explains to her that the rich woman's son is the official winner, while the protagonist is just a backup child actor. At first, Shawnee approaches the rich woman's son and kindly extends her hand to him, ready to start acting. However, the boy remains silent, acting completely arrogant. Seeing this mood darkens, he immediately turns away in frustration and walks over to the protagonist instead. The protagonist takes hand and smiles warmly. Seeing this, Mi's expression softens, and she starts talking to him naturally. The protagonist's mother proudly tells me, "My son is very friendly and gets along well with everyone." Seon Mi, now genuinely happy, declares, "I want to film with this boy instead of the other one." Hearing this, the wealthy woman completely loses her temper. She grabs arm and starts yelling in rage, but quickly pulls away unfazed as the rich woman throws a tantrum. The protagonist and his mother watch in amusement. Then suddenly a man places his hand on Therish woman's shoulder and coldly tells her to lower her voice. Sean Mi turns around, smiles, and greets him, calling him vice chairman. The man walks forward and Sean Mi curiously asks, "What brings you here today?" The man replies, "I came to watch the shoot." The protagonist stares at him in shock as if the ground beneath him had disappeared. Then it all clicks. This man is John Young, the vice chairman of Sam Jung Company. And more importantly, he is the protagonist's father. The protagonist explains that his father not good at running the company, as well as his grandfather John Justin, but his father was a competent vice chairman in his own right. During times of crisis, he took the lead in restructuring the company and improving its organizational structure. He never hesitated to invest in specialized fields, earning a reputation as a forward-thinking business leader. Forbes even recognized John Jae Hyung of Sam Jung as a future business leader of the tertiary industry. However, despite being a successful businessman, he was a terrible father and husband, absolutely the worst. Seeing his father with an actress, the protagonist's face twists in irritation. Memories from his past life come rushing back. His father had many mistresses. When he was just 10 years old, his father introduced him to Sean Mi, who was his 9th mistress and the most special one to him. Semi points at the protagonist and says that she wants to film with him because he's so good. Just then the vice chairman steps forward and speaks to the protagonist. In his mind, the protagonist refers to him as father. Suddenly, someone walks up and calls out to the vice chairman, addressing him as chairman. That person tells him, "It's time to go inside." The vice chairman then turns to everyone and says, "It's getting late, we need to go." Before leaving, he gives the rich woman a warning, telling her to speak properly and film correctly. The woman looks visibly shaken and bows her head respectfully. Watching this, the protagonist thinks, no matter how rich someone is, their company isn't as big as his father's. But in this world, money alone doesn't make people bow. The protagonist knows that his father is a playboy, but when it comes to business, he is incredibly strict. As his father places a hand on his shoulder, he tells him to do the shoot well before walking away. Watching his father leave, the protagonist silently vows to live a completely different life from his past. 1. This time he has found the most precious thing, his family. Unlike in his past life where he never received love from them, his family now cherishes him. He swears to protect them, and one day create a company greater than Sam Jung. At that moment, the assistant director calls the rich woman and tells her to bring her son for filming. A staff member points the way for her, while on the other side, the protagonist and the rich woman's child stand together. The protagonist looks at the child with a dark, sinister smile as if he's planning something. Then the scene changes to the actual filming a washing machine. Advertisement. The director explains the sequence. First, the Sean Mi will put dirty clothes into the washing machine, and after they're cleaned, he has to hug and smell the clothes, smile sweetly, and call her mommy. The protagonist recalls, "In my past life, this advertisement was a huge hit. It was recognized for its excellent direction and won the Donghae Advertising Award. The child actor in the lead role shot Tosterdom. However, as soon as the filming starts, the child keeps crying non-stop, making Sean May frustrated. Annoyed, Seon Mi asks, "What's wrong with this kid? Why is he acting like this?" Whenever anyone approaches him, the child lashes out, even hitting people. The protagonist's mother is shocked, wondering why the child is behaving like this. Meanwhile, the protagonist simply smirks darkly. It turns out that a little while ago, the protagonist had spoken to the child. He'd given him an amazing tip. If you don't want to do this, and you want to escape from your mom's oppression, just cry and hit people every time comes near you. That way they'll send you home quickly. Somehow, despite being a baby, the protagonist managed to communicate with him, which is why the child is behaving this way. The director calls for a backup child actor, and upon hearing this, the rich woman becomes furious. "My son is the winner! How can you call a backup child?" she shouts. The director, clearly frustrated, responds, "Your son has been crying for an hour, and we still haven't been able to shoot anything. What else are we supposed to do?" The child refuses to listen to anyone and keeps slapping the actress repeatedly. The director, losing his patience, reminds everyone that the shoot needs to be finished today. Enraged, the rich woman pulls out her phone and arrogantly says, "Do you even know who my family is?" She starts dialing a number, supposedly calling a chairman. The protagonist, seeing the phone, thinks even with all that money, she's still using a phone from the 90s. The woman is losing control, screaming and acting rudely. But before she can go any further, Sean May suddenly slaps her across the face. Everyone is shocked into silence. Shawnee glares at her and says, "You're talking nonsense." This kind of behavior isn't acceptable during filming. It turns out that the woman's husband owns Diopunk Paper Company, which is why she's so arrogant. On the other hand, everyone is now looking at Sayoni in admiration. Even the director starts clapping. Sean, still angry, declares, "Just because you're rich doesn't mean we have to listen to your every word." Then turning to the director, he says, "Let's start filming. This time I'll act alongside the protagonist." Even after so many slaps, she still looks down on the protagonist and his family, saying, "How can these low-class kids become models in a place like this? They have no status." Hearing this, the protagonist's mother quickly covers her son's ears so he doesn't have to listen to such disgusting words. On the other hand, the protagonist thinks to himself, "The camera, that red light, was one of the things that followed me to death in my past life." Acting confidently in front of the camera is one of his greatest weapons, so he knows exactly what to do. The scene shifts to the protagonist standing in front of the camera. Seonmi delivers a line asking, "These clothes are really clean, right?" The protagonist immediately grabs the fabric, gives a cute smile, and looks at the camera. The director blushes, and even the assistant director comments, "How can he be this cute?" The director then orders, "Keep the camera here. All other cameras focus only on him." The protagonist acts adorably, holding the clothes, putting them in his mouth, and then coughing slightly. His natural performance impresses everyone. The director is so captivated that he can't even think about deleting any of the footage. The protagonist strikes 25 different poses while looking directly at the camera. Sean May is shocked. How can such a young boy act like this? According to the script, the lead actor was supposed to say, "Holding the baby," ish out at the end of the laundry. "Weoi!" As soon as Sean Mi sees this, he starts acting, raises both hands, and delivers the final shot explaining about the washing machine. The director is overjoyed. This is the first time a child has acted so perfectly in a shoot. By the time filming ends, it's already evening, but that arrogant rich woman still refuses to accept the fact that the protagonist did such a great job. She's fuming with anger, unable to believe it, and continues speaking rudely. The director finally says, "Your son wasn't even acting, all he did was cry." Meanwhile, the protagonist and his mother are exhausted. No matter what they say, the woman just won't stop. The protagonist starts feeling tired from all the drama. That's when Seonmi steps in and reassures them, "Don't worry, she'll keep talking like this as long as you're here." The protagonist's mother talks to Seonmi, saying, "This isn't our fault if her son couldn't act." "How is that our problem?" Hearing this, the rich woman becomes even more furious. Seonmi, on the other hand, sees the protagonist as an incredible actor. He finished the shoot in just 2 takes. The arrogant woman, growing more frustrated, yells at the assistant director, "I paid so much money to make my son a model. If you did everything right, then how did this happen?" The assistant director flinches, and the director immediately realizes what's going on. He places a hand on the assistant director's shoulder and calmly says, "I'll take care of this, don't worry." With no other choice, the rich woman finally gives up. She scoffs and says, "I won't let my son be part of this ridiculous project anymore. I'll find another director." Then as she leaves, she throws one last threat. One day, I'll make sure all of you regret this. After she leaves, the director apologizes to the protagonist's mother. I'm really sorry for how rudely she spoke to you. That must have been unpleasant. He then adds, honestly, if your son hadn't been here as the backup child actor, I don't know. What we would have done, we would have been in big trouble. Hearing this, the protagonist simply smiles. It's no big deal. He's completely confident and even laughs, knowing that after this he'll definitely be called for more shoots. The director is already growing fond of him. Now they can finally go home. Without any more problems, the protagonist is happy, and his mother, seeing his bright smile, can't help but smile too. Meanwhile, Seonmi is deep in thought. Then he suddenly smirks and makes an offer to the protagonist's mother. Let me drive you home. They get into a van and the protagonist, exhausted, quickly falls asleep. Seonmi chuckles. He looks even cuter when he's sleeping. The protagonist's mother thanks him for giving them a ride. Seem then shares his thoughts. I believe your son is destined to be a top actor. Thanks to him, I got to leave work early. It's unclear what it meant by that. Seonmi continues. The way he looked at the camera, the way he understood everything during recording, he never looked nervous for even a second. He recalls how during filming the protagonist even adjusted Seonmi's face with his tiny hands, making sure his side profile was captured perfectly on screen. Seeing all this, something becomes clear in Seonmi's mind. This child was born to be a great actor. At such a young age, he already has a talent that doesn't even need to be taught. Hearing this, the protagonist's mother is completely stunned. She can't believe her son has such natural talent. Semi is so impressed that she decides to make an offer. But just as she's about to speak, the protagonist suddenly opens his eyes. Semi extends her hand toward the protagonist and says she wants to offer him a contract with Sinsong Entertainment. Hearing this, the protagonist gives an evil smile.